Welcome back. Let us now work out more and more properties of Riemann integration and look at some more examples that will be used later. First, I wanted to tell you an equivalent condition for a function to be Riemann integrable. Remember that we always have our running condition that f from the closed interval ab to r is going to be a bounded function. So let f be a bounded real valued function on the closed interval ab. The following condition, known as Riemann condition, says the following, that the integrability of a function on a closed interval ab is same as for every epsilon greater than 0 there should exist a partition p epsilon of ab such that p epsilon f minus l p epsilon f is less than epsilon. Now let us see how do we prove such kind of a result. First, we prove the only if part. Suppose f is an integrable function and we also assume that an epsilon greater than 0 is already given to us. We want to produce a partition p epsilon such that the condition u p epsilon f minus l p epsilon f less than epsilon is satisfied. Alright, so now we know that uf is infimum of all the values of UPF. Now infimum is the best lower bound. What does it mean? That whatever epsilon bigger than 0 you give me, UF plus epsilon by 2 is not going to be a lower bound for the set anymore. What does it mean in turn? It means that there exists a partition P1 such that UP1F is less than UF plus epsilon by 2. Similarly, using the same argument for LF, we can produce a partition P2 such that LP2F is bigger than LF minus epsilon by 2. Now we have used this kind of arguments again. So I define P epsilon to be a common refinement of P1 and P2. That is, I simply take union of P1 and P2. Now since P epsilon is a refinement of P1 and P2, we have already seen before that LP epsilon f is bigger than LP2f, or let's say bigger than or equal to be precise, and UP epsilon f is less than UP1f. This we have already observed. Now let us see what do we do with this. UP epsilon f minus LP epsilon f is less than or equal to, by what we have just said, that UP1f minus LP2f. This follows from these two inequalities that we have just observed. Now we have seen in these two inequalities that are given in green fonts. So UP1f is less than UF plus epsilon by 2. On the other hand, LP2f is bigger than LF minus epsilon by 2. If we add these two terms up, we simply see that this is equal to UF minus LF plus epsilon. We note that up to this point we have not made use of the fact that f is Riemann integrable, but we are going to use it now. Since f is Riemann integrable, or since simply f is integrable for this course, it will mean that LF is equal to UF, and as a consequence we see that UF minus LF is equal to 0, and we are only left with epsilon. So we have produced a partition P epsilon such that UP epsilon f minus LP epsilon f is strictly less than epsilon. Conversely, suppose that the Riemann condition is true, that is, given any epsilon, so given any epsilon greater than 0, we can produce a partition P epsilon of the closed interval AB such that UP epsilon f minus LP epsilon f is less than epsilon. I want to draw your attention to the following fact that we have already observed in one of our previous videos that this quantity is always bigger than or equal to 0. UPF is always bigger than or equal to LPF. We will not forget that yet. Okay, now UF is the infimum of all UPFs. So UF is a lower bound for the set of all UPFs. Consequently, UF is less than or equal to UP epsilon F, and similarly LF is bigger than or equal to LP epsilon F. So P epsilon, remember, is a partition. What do we have? UF minus LF is less than or equal to UP epsilon F minus LP epsilon F, which is less than epsilon. Now what we now this UF and LF, they do not depend on epsilon. These are quantities that are independent of epsilon. So what we have shown is that you can give me any epsilon greater than 0. I will show that if this condition is satisfied, if the Riemann condition is satisfied, then UF minus LF is a non-negative real number which is less than epsilon. You might have already seen in your calculus 1 that if you have a non-negative real number which is less than epsilon for every epsilon greater than 0, then A must be equal to 0. As a consequence, we have that UF minus LF is equal to 0, and consequently LF is equal to UF. What does it mean? That F is integrable. This completes the proof of the Riemann condition. We now give you a simple corollary which is very easy to prove. So this is a sequential criteria. You may like to see it in this way. We do not forget about the running assumption yet. So suppose that f is a function, bounded real valued function. The corollary says that f is integrable on the closed interval AB if and only if there is a sequence Pn of partitions of AB such that UPnF minus LPnF goes to 0 as n goes to infinity. And in such a case, the limit of each of these sequences UPnF and LPnF will be equal to the integral that we are interested in. Now let us prove this fact. So again we start with the only if part. Suppose f is given to be an integrable function. By Riemann's condition, you can give me any epsilon greater than 0. I will give you a partition P epsilon corresponding to that epsilon such that UP epsilon F minus LP epsilon F is less than epsilon. Now you might have seen this argument before in your calculus 1 course. For now I will keep on putting epsilon equal to 1 by n as n varies in the set of natural numbers. For each n, I can thus produce a partition Pn such that UPnF minus LPnF is less than epsilon. Remember, we have put epsilon equal to 1 by n. This holds true for all n. So this holds true for all n as it is mentioned here, and as we take n larger and larger, it goes to 0 as n goes to infinity. So we have proved one part. The next part, the converse, is also not difficult to prove. And how do we do it? So suppose that there is a sequence of partitions Pn of the closed interval AB such that UPnF minus LPnF goes to 0. So I must write here that as n goes to infinity, we prove that now f is Riemann integrable. So we will show that this will give us the Riemann condition. Now you take, given any epsilon greater than 0, there exists an n0 bigger than or equal to 0 such that UPnF minus LPnF is less than epsilon whenever n is bigger than or equal to n0. This is simply the meaning of the fact that a sequence an goes to 0 as n tends to infinity. This is the definition of a sequence converging to 0 as n goes to infinity. Now you can simply take your P epsilon to be equal to Pn0 to get the Riemann condition. And when you have got your Riemann condition, you know that your function f is going to be integrable on the closed interval ab. I leave the limit calculation to you as a reading exercise. I have given a clear proof of the fact that LP and f converges to the integral of f. I leave the part UP and f converges to integral f as an exercise for you to complete. Again, I will hope that you will really work out these examples so that you get more and more comfortable with these notions. Let me give you an example. Let me show you how you can use the condition, the corollary that we have just proved, in order to compute some examples, compute the integrals for some examples. So let me take the function f(x) equal to x, as x varies between the closed interval AB. So here we are in a situation which we are familiar with from our first video. Here we have a continuous function which is non-negative, as well as it is monotonically increasing. So f is a monotonically increasing function. So you can take any partition P of your choice and you can consider your subintervals xi minus 1 xi as I varies from 1 to n. You will see that since f is a monotonically increasing function, it will the highest value of f in this interval will be equal to this, and the lowest value will be equal to xi minus 1. So what I am trying to say is that small MIF will always be given by xi minus 1 and big MIF will always be given by xi. Now it is a matter of doing some algebra to write down what is the meaning of LPF, what is the meaning of UPF. Now this form is not very easy to work with. So let me try to simplify this form so that we can get a more easy expression corresponding to each of LPF and UPF. So let me just try to work out the difference between them. So we know that UPF is bigger than or equal to LPF. So why don't we try to calculate what is UPF minus LPF? A simple calculation will tell you that this is equal to summation I from 1 to n xi minus 1 whole square. And what is UPF plus LPF? If you sum these two things up, you will see that this is nothing but summation I from 1 to n xi square minus xi minus 1 square. Again, this will boil down to b square minus a square. If you solve these two equations, the system of two linear equations, you can easily see that UPF is given by b square minus a square by 2 plus half times summation I equal to 1 to n xi minus 1 whole square, whereas LPF is given by b square minus a square by 2 minus half summation I equal to 1 to n xi minus 1 whole square. Now I will show that I will try to use the sequential criteria that I have just proved for you. For each n, let Pn denote the partition of AB that partitions AB into n equal parts. You have come across this partition in a previous video. So if you see what does it mean, here xi minus 1 will turn out to be equal to b minus a by n. You just plug in the formula xi minus 1 in this formula. You will get that UP and F turns out to be equal to b square minus a square by 2 plus half times summation I equal to 1 to n b minus a by n whole square, and similar expression for LPF. Now you see that if you look at this quantity here, summation b minus a whole square divided by 2 is constant. The only thing that varies with n is 1 by n square, and as a consequence this term goes to 0 as n goes to infinity. So what do we get? UP and F goes to b square minus a square by 2, and LP and F goes to b square minus a square by 2 as n tends to infinity. So UPNF goes to the same, UPNF has the same limit as UPNF, and as a consequence UPNF minus LPNF, they converge to 0 as n goes to infinity. By the previous corollary, f is integrable, and what is the integral? The integral is given by the common limit, the limit of UPNF or the limit of LPNF. So this limit is equal to b square minus a square by 2. Let's go forward. I'll give you some properties of integrable functions without proofs, and I will not ask for proof, ask you to prove these assertions in your exam. So it is your duty just to understand these concepts and use this in examples that will be use this in examples or exercises that will be provided in the assignments. So if f is a monotone function, it is integrable. You can think of monotone functions as follows. Of course, you have functions like fx equal to x, fx equal to x square, etc. Depending on the interval, whether it is increasing or decreasing. Let us look at some somewhat complicated examples. So first, you fix a closed interval AB and you define the box function, the floor function. So this function, you know, is a monotonically increasing function, and by our result it is integrable. On the other hand, this function is a little bit more complicated, so we are going to define this function. I don't know, let me call it g here. So g is a function which is defined on the closed interval 0, 1. So you can choose any x inside 0, 1. So for any x inside the interval 0, 1, there exists a natural number such that x lies between 1 by n plus 1 and 1 by n. I hope you have seen this in your Calculus 1 course. If you have not seen it yet, please try to prove. So I will keep it as an exercise. Now, given a function, given a real number x inside the interval, you find out the integer n such that 1 by n plus 1 less than x is less than equal to 1 by n, and put it to be equal to 1 by n. This cannot be true for x equal to 0. You cannot find such integers, and you just define g of 0 to be equal to 0. So truly speaking, this should be a round bracket. Okay, you can see that this function is monotonically decreasing, and consequently it is integrable. Now I will ask you to produce a set of 10 more examples in this category. Now, another assertion is as follows. If f is a bounded real valued function on the closed interval AB which has only finite number of discontinuities, so then f is integrable. So what why I stopped was that I wanted to ensure that this function is a bounded function. So if f is a bounded function on a closed interval AB that has at most finite number of points of discontinuities, then f is integrable. So any continuous function has to be integrable because it falls in this perspective. Any polynomial is integrable because of the same reason it is a continuous function. Again, I will ask you to produce 10 more examples in this category. Let's go ahead. Let me give you some algebraic properties. So what do we mean by algebraic properties? They are generally concerned with sums, products, scalar products, etc. So it says that if you have two integrable functions f and g, then f plus g is integrable, and to compute the integration, compute the integral of f plus g, you just compute the integrals of f and g and add them up together. Now if c is a constant, c is a real number, then and f is integrable, then cf is integrable, and it turns out that to compute the integral of CF, you just multiply the integral of f by c. Also, if f and g are two integrable functions, then fg is integrable. So product of two integrable functions is integrable, and you may be wondering whether it is true that integral of fg is computed as integral of f times integral of g, but this is not the case, and we will come to this in one of our future videos, and this will be taken care of by the notion of integral by parts. Now the last property, if modulus of fx is bounded below by a positive number delta as x varies inside the closed interval, then 1 by f, the reciprocal of f, is integrable. So note that this condition implies that the function 1 by f is bounded. So this implies that the function 1 by f is bounded, and the result says that in such a case 1 by f is integrable. Okay, so we did assume the fact that f was integrable. So if f was integrable, modulus of fx is bounded below by a positive real number, then 1 by f is bounded. Now we look at some order properties. If fx is less than or equal to gx for all x inside the closed interval ab, then integral of f is less than or equal to integral of g. Also, if f is integrable, then modulus of f is integrable, and modulus of integral of f is less than or equal to integral of modulus of f. So we get back to more and more properties of Riemann integration in our next video.